I just believe in humans. I see the abilities, the capabilities that we all have, and we all do. We have superpowers, and to build the world that we live in. Sometimes I'm just so amazed by it. I'll be on a plane and I'm landing in a city, and just to see it from above and think
Mm.
humans created that. So when I say I'm a humanity fanatic, I believe so much in humans and what we're capable of, and it also, the work that I do is to make sure that people know what they're capable of, because we're
Mm.
capable of so much more.
Welcome to the Warriors at Work show. This is Gina Coomber, your guide and host. This is a show for men and women in the workplace who want to move from the predictable to the potent. This is your weekly dose of inspiration with an edge. I talk with CEOs and shamans, sports marketing executives and therapists. All of us are like-minded thinkers and doers who tell stories, share wisdom, and challenge each other to have the best life possible inside and outside the office. Welcome to your Warrior Conversation.
Hey everybody, it's Jeannie. Thanks so much for joining me. Today, I'm bringing to you such a special, beautiful, heartfelt, powerful conversation with Joseph Machicote, who is new to my world, new to my network, but boy, am I glad I met him. He is an HR and organizational development executive, consultant, keynote speaker, certified executive coach, and now an author of the book Own Thy Stuff. He's over 33 years of experience in senior leadership roles. He's now currently the founder and CEO of Transformational Leadership Solutions Group, which is a coaching and consulting organization. But what we talk about in this conversation are things around humanity, humility, and how humility is the power move. He shares incredible stories and wisdom from his personal journey, his professional journey, and what a gift. Enjoy. Joe, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. I can't wait to jump in.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So, obviously, a big part of what we're going to talk about here is this idea of owning who you are. And what I wanted to do is ground ourselves first around that key theme
Hmm.
about knowing who we are. And I would love to start by having you describe who are you?
Yeah, and I thought that was a great question. Um, so I kind of call that my identities. So what are the things that I identify most with? And at this time in my life, it's about being a dad, being a husband, being a new grandfather.
Mm,
Being a retiree. Um, the value that I have for my family, being a hard worker. I'm a humanity fanatic. Like, I believe so much in just
mm,
humanity. And from a professional point of view, I consider myself a culture development expert, or what I call in my business, being a cultural engineer. Someone that helps people to design cultures that allow people to bring their best performance to work.
mm.
So when I think about, those ideas and how I describe myself, it's interesting because it's changed a lot throughout my life and throughout my career. So I think I retired like 12 weeks ago or something like that. And it's amazing now how much I feel like I relate to people who are retired than I did even 12 weeks ago. Like, just the words coming out of my mouth, I now see retirees so different. So I think our identities change in life is kind of where I'm going.
Mm.
And they change at work too. And a lot of it depends on the environment. But I am a big believer in, we have um, the unbelievable superpower and ability to change or live into our identities fully by our own choice. So no matter what's going on around us, we have the opportunity to do that.
Tell me more about humanity fanatic. I've never
Yeah.
heard anyone say that before.
Yeah, I just believe in humans. I see the abilities, the capabilities that we all have, and we all do. We have superpowers, and to build the world that we live in. Sometimes I'm just so amazed by it. I'll be on a plane and I'm landing in a city, and just to see it from above and think
Mm.
humans created that. Like
Yeah.
how is it possible? I recently was doing training with an organization that they are responsible. Really, when I think about them, they don't call themselves this, but they're a construction and engineering company, and they're responsible for building the infrastructure on this planet.
Mm.
So they work on things like bridges and tunnels, and their culture is so amazing. And I just think about the heavy work that needs to be done. Like a bridge goes out, who fixes that? Well,
Yeah.
it starts with humans using really, really big technology and machinery. So when I say I'm a humanity fanatic, I believe so much in humans and what we're capable of, and it also, the work that I do is to make sure that people know what they're capable of, because we're capable
Mm.
of so much more.
Yes, make sure people know what they're capable of. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, let's talk about this a little deeper. You often talk about this lifelong commitment
Mm.
to owning who you are. I want to hear more like where does that come from?
Yeah, yeah. So, and you're familiar with my book, Own Thy Stuff,
Mhm.
and I'm a big believer in that. It's one of my personal mantras, is to own who you're being in every interaction. So that same superpower that I'm talking about, that's able to build bridges and buildings and cities and these huge infrastructures that keep us alive, and the idea of medicine, and how we are actively finding ways to fight disease and that type of thing. I believe that in every single interaction, we have a choice on who we're going to be in that interaction. And my life's work, being in human resources for as long as I have, I've seen all kinds of behaviors come in.
Mm.
And the question I always have is, number one, I really love you, human. You are awesome. But what made you decide to do this?
Yeah.
Like, who were you being in this situation? Whether it's a crisis, whether it's a happy time, whether it's a loving relationship with a family member, or it's an argument. Who are you choosing to be in that? Because there's only one thing in this world we are completely in control of, as long as we have the mental capacity to do so, right? So if we have a mental illness or something else, or a physical disability, but the only thing that we can control in this world is our own behaviors and actions. It's the
Mm.
only thing. So we can think, I mean, if you have a spouse, if you have children, if you have pets, congratulations, you're not in control of any of them. They are going to do what they want when
Yep.
they want, and it's because we all have this gift of choice. But
Yeah.
my question when I'm coaching an individual, or I'm coaching a team, or I'm helping an organization to find the best version of themselves, the first question I ask them is, who are you in the most critical moments? Who do you wake up and choose to be? Who are you in that heated discussion with a loved one? Who are you in that debate with, so much going on in the world today and in our culture, and the debates are getting more and more heated, and people just, quite frankly, losing their stuff over, over things that in so many cases are so small and just don't matter. So, and why did you choose to be who you were being in that moment?
And I love those questions, by the way, as an executive coach for over 20 years,
Yeah,
getting people to I understand and create some self-awareness when they're in moments where they're not maybe at their best and highest, and like to
right.
understand you may have had an intention to show up a certain way,
Sure.
but what happened that made you shift? What
Yes.
and how do you get back to that best and highest? And I know this is very much tied to your
Yeah.
philosophy. So I want to talk about you. We're going to get into the book in just a moment, but I want to
Mhm.
sidestep a little bit and talk about your, I'm going to call it your HR professional self first.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got a long history of leading organizations from an HR and culture perspective. And you often say that the greatest gap in organizations isn't strategy, it's the gap between words and behaviors, which is what we're talking about right here.
Yes.
Why do you think that gap exists? And what would true alignment actually look like?
Yeah. So I think it's great you use the word alignment because, clarity and alignment is where things start.
Mm,
There is only one way in psychology, in every single human interaction since the beginning of time. There's only one way, two ways actually, to build relationships: what I do and what I say.
mm,
And those two things have to interact. There's no other way to build a relationship. You can't communicate it any other way. All you have is your words and your actions. And when those two things are not aligned, it
mm,
causes a trust gap. So when I think about organizations, every organization that you walk into, they have their values written up on the wall. And the values are beautifully written, right? We take care of you, we take care of our customers, we love the things we do, right? We are high performing, value driven team with integrity and blah 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 blah.
mhm,
And the first time that I walk into an organization and I find out that my leader is maybe doing two out of the five values that are on the wall, that is going to start making me ask some questions. So the idea around alignment is, how do we align our words and our behaviors?
mm,
And how do we, besides the alignment, how are we making sure that we're actually living those things? And that speaks to accountability.
mm,
And what's missing is the accountability. So I can tell you organizations that I've seen, worked for, have been a client or whatever, however I've interacted with them. What winds up happening is you have this senior leader, this maybe it's the CEO that speaks these wonderful words and so on. And then you go down to that leader's direct reports. And those people are wonderful that believe in the vision and the values and everything else. And they feel like they're living it every day. And then you get one layer down, and you've got Bill and Mary and Susan. And Bill and Mary and Susan do things that are not always aligned with the values of the
mhm,
organization, and they're causing disruption on their teams. They cause team to team disruption, so that when teams are asked to work together, there are behaviors that go on that make the teams actually not interact well with one
mm,
another. And then you look up and you tell, whoever that senior leader is, here's what's going on. And they'll go, "Oh, that's just Susan."
mm.
So I
You're
I
walking me
wrote
through my life right now, by the way, the work that I
I'm walking and through
have.
everyone's lives, right? And because everyone has experienced it, where
Mm,
the words and the actions have misaligned. I feel like it's when those words and those actions are not coming together, and that senior leader is not holding people accountable. I actually, in my book and in a lot of the speaking that I do and a lot of the coaching and training that I do, I give all of my all the people that work with me a formula, and that is: culture equals how I behave, excuse me, how I behave, plus how I allow others to behave. So culture equals how I behave plus how I allow others to behave.
mm,
So what that formula implies is, if I behave a particular way and that's living my values, one interaction at a time,
mhm.
but I allow others to not do that, well, congratulations, that's my culture. That is the culture that I have formed by not holding people accountable for those same things.
Why do you think organizations and leaders are not holding people accountable?
I think sometimes accountability is scary. The word itself sends people running into the night because somehow it feels, hard or or even misplaced. But there's so many great ways to hold people accountable. And in my HR journey and background, I had to coach so many leaders on how to have difficult conversations.
Mm,
And difficult conversations are not easy for anybody. That's why there's every 3 book is a book about difficult conversations.
right.
So because it's so hard to do. But let's say something easy, for instance. Okay. So John has started to show up late to work on a regular basis. And the rest of the team has noticed that John is showing up late. And in fact, they are now talking about it behind the scenes. So as a boss, I can approach John and say, John, you're showing up late. And if you keep doing it, I'm going to fire you. Well, that's great. That will inspire someone, right, to maybe change their behaviors. But how about this? How about John? I've noticed that you're coming in late to work. Can you and I have a conversation about this? Is there something that we can do, something that maybe I can help you with to ensure that you're going to be here on time? And the reason is, right? The why, the reason is it's beginning to show on our team. And people are questioning my ability to hold the entire team accountable. And I think you and I can come up with a solution on how we solve those two issues. But tell me more about what is making you show up late, and let's see what we can do to resolve the problem. I
Mm,
just said the exact same thing. But one, I what I inserted was respect and trust, right? I trust that you can fix this problem. I
mm,
respect you enough
mm.
to have a conversation with it about it. And my good friend Bill Poole, who wrote, Start with Respect, he has a formula called R plus T equals I, which is respect plus trust equals influence. So, we can all influence one another. So, if someone walks up on the street to me and with a gun and asks me for my wallet, I will gladly hand them the wallet. They have influenced me. But that's fear-based influence. That
Mm,
is not respect and trust-based influence, right?
mm,
So I think that is the missing part. People are so, and especially it feels like, in our society, because it's pulling apart even more, having difficult conversations. um it used to be you could have a difficult conversation and the other person would actually just comply, whether it was fear-based or trust-based. But nowadays, these conversations just turn into these long arguments where no one wants to admit that maybe they're a little wrong this time,
mm.
or that's a whole nother thing with humanity and just humans in general. This need to be right, or this need to win, because if I'm not winning, I'm losing. If I'm not right, I'm wrong. So we battle for our righteousness. It's one of the chapters in the book, Own Thyself Righteousness. We battle for this righteousness, even to the point where we are arguing when we know we're clearly wrong.
Right.
We will argue to be right.
It's what I find interesting, and and this is like a personal journey for me too. We all like to be right.
Yeah.
I, I think the thing that gets missed very often is the power of the acknowledgement when you're in pain, you're uncomfortable, there's
Yeah.
tension. There's tremendous power in the learning that I'm in a place that either it's not familiar to me, it's not comfortable, I'm afraid what could happen. Because if you can just lean in and acknowledge that that's happening, that wisdom
Mhm.
is gonna guide you and take you to the next place. But so many people avoid it because it's like,
Yes.
I don't wanna be uncomfortable. I don't want the tension. I don't want the difficulty. I'm afraid what's gonna happen if I call that out or I ask for a different approach to something. I'm gonna be penalized because
Yes.
this is and I've said this numerous times in client conversations and in other social groups, like, this is a climate that's very production oriented. And this particularly
Mhm.
the last few years, it's all about think about all those competencies that we socialize all the time. What's your, execution, make faster decisions, agility, resilience, get in there. And all of that, what that's doing is perpetuating this production mentality, like I have to produce at all costs. And
Yes.
it's making the people centric part of the business secondary or not even in the conversation. And I think that's what's also reinforcing this idea that we don't have to hold each other accountable. We don't have to have tough conversations because I'm not measured on that. I'm measured on my productivity and my numbers, my profitability and my revenue. And then again, all those buzzwords.
Yes.
And I think it just is, well, that's nobody's holding me accountable that I got to do that. So if they're not producing, you're out.
Yes, exactly.
Is that consistent with what you're seeing?
Absolutely. Something I want to share with your listeners, especially those who are leaders, is something that all of a sudden is not. I don't know if it's all of a sudden. I don't know if it was always this way. I'm sure it is just based on human behavior. But I want to reintroduce into the conversation the power of humility.
Oh, yes.
And when,
Yes.
humility is seen as like such this soft thing, and that's the other thing, is us calling each other either hard or soft or snowflakes or whatever it is we want to call one another. Humility and, the soft skills are really the necessary skills. And there's nothing wrong with a little bit of humility. So I'll give you an example. So for your viewers that watch sports a lot, so I coached both of my boys in baseball as they were growing up and basketball. And one of the things that we talked about during practice, because during the game, that's not the time to practice our skills. That's when our skills are brought to light, right? So in the workplace, you kind of feel like you're always in the game. But
Mm.
in those practice opportunities, in your meetings, in your strategy meetings, in your one-on-ones, and so on, teaching each other the value and power of humility is really incredible. And what I taught all the kids is, hey, you know what? Sports, it's a game of mistakes. The other team is always looking to you to make some sort of error that is going to work in their favor. And
Mm.
when you make an error, it feels bad for you, it feels bad for the rest of the team. But here's what I want you to do. When you make an error, I want you to tap your chest twice and go, my bad. My bad. I own that error. And you watch it on television. You watch it in basketball or baseball.
Mm.
Someone misses a ball or misses a play or misses a dunk or whatever. They turn around to the rest of the team and you hear them mouth it. They go, my bad.
Yeah,
My bad just is a little bit of ownership and it's humility. But what humility does is it actually builds trust.
yeah.
People love people who own their stuff. And when you can own it in the midst of the heat, look, I'll give you a real time example. You have probably had a heated discussion with a loved one. And in that heated discussion, at some point, invariably, someone says, stop shouting.
Mhm.
And your response is what?
I'm not shouting.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Shouted. I'm not shouting. And the other person says, yes, you are. And your response is, oh, no, I'm not. And now the argument actually shifts from whatever it was you were arguing about. You're now arguing about who was actually shouting.
Yeah.
And now you are trying to win the I wasn't shouting argument. Now, here's what winning the I'm not shouting argument gets you: 3 days worth of someone not talking to you, loss of trust, loss of love, you quite frankly showing up as an a-hole. Well, congratulations, you won the argument. You have won a full life worth of destroying your relationship. Congratulations, good for you, winner. Right? Instead of, and in the moment that someone says stop shouting, say this: my apologies if you're experiencing me as shouting right now. Let's take the temperature down in the room for a minute. And I want to get back to this discussion because it's obviously important to the both of you, to the both of us, and I want to hear you on this. So let's just take it down. If you're experiencing me, because here's the thing: we don't really know if we were shouting. Our definition of shouting versus the other person's definition may be completely different. And like I said before, there's only one thing in this world we are completely in charge of, which is ourselves. So in
Mhm.
that moment, we have the opportunity to make the other person feel heard and say, you know what, maybe I'm not thinking, and notice the words, I apologize if you are experiencing me as shouting. I don't know really if I'm shouting or not. In my head, I'm not shouting, but I'm kind of putting it back to you. You are experiencing me as shouting, which is a signal for me to own my stuff and curb my behavior. So again, that whole owning thy stuff is about
Yeah.
taking a conscious interruption in the moment to acknowledge the other person and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to eat a little bit of humble pie. Guess what? When I eat humble pie, I get a bigger win. Humility doesn't make us lose. Humility makes us win. And when we win in that, that builds trust. It makes the other person feel heard. You're solidifying the relationship. Guess what, guys? Humility is freaking cool. Own it. Own your humility.
You will that I love that. I love that. And that's like ninja level too, to like de-escalate a conversation. So
It is. And the
more
first
power
time,
to you. That is
you do it,
when you're
that
in
person
it.
is going to look at you like you're out of your mind.
Well, let's talk about your book, because I want to go back to you had a catalyst experience
Yes.
that prompted you to decide to write this book, Own My Stuff. So tell us about the journey.
Yeah. So the journey is a compilation of mistakes I've made all along my career and in my life, where I don't know that I chose the right who I was going to be in that moment.
Mm.
And the ability to own my stuff. And the biggest part of it, it's a long story, so I'm going to keep it short. If you want to know more about the story, please purchase the book on Amazon. But I lost my wife Rona to cancer, and it was her second devastating illness. The first one was Guillain-Barré, and it left her semi-paralyzed. Well, it left her mostly paralyzed. She was unable to do simple tasks like brushing her own teeth and so on. So I became her caregiver, and this was in our 40s, and you never expected that. And I was very bitter and very angry about it. And, I blamed her. I blamed her family's genealogy. I blamed everything for it. And she was in the hospital for about a year. And when she came out of the hospital, we had to discover a whole new life. It was a change that we didn't ask for. She was in a wheelchair, but things were beginning to get better. And I noticed that as my attitude and my support shifted to more positivity, the better things became. So she actually learned how to drive again. We had a car that was outfitted for her. She wanted to be mom again. She wanted to, she wanted to support our children in a mom way. So showing up at school to pick them up on the pickup line was something that was like super important to her. And most people complain about it. She was like, I love this part. She wanted to be there for the baseball games and, watching our boys grow up. And so we got to a point where we were accepting life, and we were accepting who we were and how our behaviors were going to adopt. And then in October of 2010, she came home with chest pains, and I said, we're not messing around with this. So we took her to the emergency room, and the doctor came back in and was pale and said, I don't know how else to tell you, but Rona has cancer. And it looks like it's in stage 4. It's liver cancer. It's all throughout her abdomen. It's adenocarcinoma. Started in her liver and possibly even her gallbladder, and now it's just everywhere. And our world went black. And that night, I got home. I took her. Put her in the bedroom. We got her showered and everything, put her to bed. And I went upstairs. We had a master bedroom upstairs, but due to the Guillain-Barré, we had to create a space for her downstairs. So lucky enough, we had a bedroom with a bathroom there connected. So that became our new master. But I went upstairs to our master bedroom, and I threw pillows. I punched walls. I screamed into pillows. I cried until my voice went hoarse. And in those moments, I cursed God. I cursed the medical community. I cursed everything around us. And for weeks beyond that, I was not being my best self. I was just an awful person to be around. And there was a lot of self-pity. It was why me? It was why her? And so on. And and my family is Jewish. I married a Jewish woman, raised Jewish children, and then converted to be closer to them, and so on. So the rabbi at our temple said, "You need to reach out to your friend Holly Gainsborough." And this is someone who I had done some work with, and Holly was going through um, cancer with her husband. He had a glioblastoma brain tumor, and we're on the phone and we're just kind of comparing notes, and I was following their journey. Our families were friends, so we were following their journey as they went into this, and I said, well, this would be great. I'll speak to someone that I know who's kind of going through a similar journey. And in speaking to Holly that night, there was so much clarity. She had so much wisdom. She had chosen who she was going to be in this journey with her husband
Mm.
Stephen, and they had just an amazing love and an amazing relationship, and two amazing children. And at some point, I said, Holly, I just don't understand, why her. Why me? And she looked at me and she said, Joe, why not her? Why not you? What makes you guys so special that it can't happen to you? She says, this is happening to millions of people. And at that moment, I made a decision that I was going to come out of the self-pity moments. Every good victim needs a good villain, and I could easily name who my villain was. And I was letting my villain win. So at that moment, one of the mantras I adopted for myself was own thy stuff. And
Mm.
if you look at the book cover, it's own thy stuff, but my mantra starts with a different S word,
Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
And so that's the thing that I tell myself all the time is, Joe, you got to own this. And how are you going to own it? And who are you going to decide to be? So literally like a light switch, Holly helped me transition from the victim to the victor. And it was my job then to talk to Rona and get her to have a victor mentality around this too. So literally the next day, had a conversation with Rona, and by the way, she was given 3 months to live. And I think the change in our attitude and what Holly shared with me that day, and our ability to impact our family, gave us 18 months. She
Mm.
lived for another 18 months,
Mm.
just from positivity, positive attitude. One of the other things that
Mm.
Holly, teaches me and still teaches me today is, when people pass away from cancer, a lot of people say they lost the battle. They didn't lose the battle. The battle just ended.
Yeah.
They were just battling, and the battle ended. And so the best part of, I guess, this story that can be very sad, and but the idea is changing attitude changes outcomes. Holly and I are married today. And her two amazing kids and my two amazing kids are family, and we call all of them our children. In public, we call them our inherited children. But
Mm.
Holly still continues to impact my life in an amazing way today. And I believe that without that change, by the way, she does grief coaching and counseling.
Wow.
So yeah, and that wasn't what she was doing when we first got together. That was something that after we got married, I was like, "You're amazing at this. You need to dig into this a little bit deeper." So Holly's now got her own podcast, her own people that she helps. She works a lot in the brain tumor world, and
Mm.
helps widows, primarily with partners that are going through glioblastoma and other brain tumor journey. So I just feel like the positivity of that, um, you know, eh, that is what helped me to finally capture all of these notes, and all the things that I was doing, all these moments where I just had to own my own behavior, but own the idea of being something different
Mm.
in the crisis, or the the fun times, the great times, the sad times. Who are you going to be? And choose who you're going to be, because choosing who you're going to be makes the outcomes matter.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Joe, what a story. What a
Mm,
journey.
thank you.
Um, you talked about these mantras and how much they've really shaped the whole experience, but it's also shaping your life.
Yes.
Um, was there a particular mantra that challenged you the most?
Mm.
And is it something that still challenges you today?
Yeah, yeah. So I will tell you, the mantras are situational. When they come
Mm,
up, it's which one are you choosing the most today? So I have kind of an overall mantra. The first one is own my stuff. You know, um, but the secondary one is to remember to leave everything and everyone a little bit better than you found them.
mm,
And I wake up every morning with that mantra in my head. And depending on the situation that's going on, sometimes it might be a little bit difficult to do that,
mm,
especially if the person kind of in your face is extremely challenging.
mhm,
But I do try to find ways to do that because in every situation, we're going to get through to the other side of the situation, no matter what the situation is. There
mhm,
is a beginning, a middle, and an end. And what I think about is what do I want the outcome to be at the end of this situation, even though it feels really awful right now. It could be, a heated discussion, a disagreement at work. It could be a disagreement with my boss or, another team that I'm working with. There's going to be an end to this. How do you want to have that person talk about their interaction with you at the end of this? And then what we have to do is work backward into that
mm.
outcome. So beginning with the end in mind, how am I going to leave this person, this situation better than I found it? And then you have to work those behaviors into that mantra. So some days that's really easy, and some days that is super difficult. I can tell you that I struggle. The most difficult time where, holding my mantras is in my car. When I am driving and people are like cutting you off or they're doing all kinds of things, I
Mhm.
am probably the worst person in my car. And sometimes I have to remember it's like, Joe, come on, dude, you wrote a whole book on this subject.
Yeah,
So own your stuff in the moment. Yeah, even though they can't hear me and everything, my attitude can change everything and mindset will change everything. So we know what it feels like when we're driving happy. We know what it feels like when we're driving stressed or under a time crunch. You're still
mhm,
driving the car, but now it's your choice on what is the mindset you're going to drive that car in. We know when we're happy, less dumb things happen. We know that when we're stressed,
yeah,
we actually increase the ability to have a dumb thing like an accident or a fender bender or something like
yeah,
that happen,
so
right?
true.
So we've got the power of choosing who we're going to be in those moments is so powerful. I really want people to be able to accept and understand that and give it a try, you
Yeah.
know?
I'll often say, I try to live this mantra. In the morning, I get up, I say, "All right, I'm gonna do good and see the good today."
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm saying it through my teeth, "I'm gonna do good. I'm gonna see the good." But it's it takes me back to, like, a higher way of thinking and being, and that's really where the gold is that you
Mm,
have access. The more access you have fully to yourself, the more optionality you have, and I think the mantras is it sets you up for success because you start to see the bigger picture. Again,
yeah,
it expands your thinking, your feeling, your whole energy starts to shift, and then options start to present themselves. I
right.
love that. Um, this has been so much fun. I could literally talk to you for 16 hours. I want to move us to the now. So
Yes.
after a 35-year career in HR,
Mm.
you retired. You could have stayed retired.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you feel like you're being called to at this chapter in your life?
Yes. So I feel like there's so much work to do. So, I retired early at 62. I always knew that the message that I have and what I do, I wanted to do on a broader scale. So instead of just doing it for one company, and you're kind of locked into that company. There's only so many things you can.
Mhm.
There's only so many places you can be, kind of on the company's dime. I wanted to bring this to more people. and working for a company, I had limited ability to do that. But now through coaching and speaking and actually working with other organizations to help them set up the infrastructure for their culture. And let's talk about things: clarity, alignment, accountability, um, you know, who 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 individuals are and how those individuals are the most important part of the team, because the way that they show up really inspires and impacts the team. I want to bring that message to more people. So, but this is the part of the 35 years that I always loved doing the most. I was always a mentee, a mentor. I was always, a coach to people. I was always a sponsor. And that difference between mentoring
Mm.
and sponsorship is saying people's names in the room where they normally would not be. It's such an amazing story. Recently, not recently, a couple of years ago, I introduced one of my mentors to one of the executive on our executive team, and worked side by side with him. And I said, I want you to meet my mentee. And in no other situation would he actually have met this individual. But I said, what, I love your leadership style and so on. I'd love for you to build a relationship with my mentee.
Hmm.
And the two of them got together. So years later, that executive, had left the company. And unfortunately, that employee, my mentee, was let go in a reduction in force. They now work together in another company.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
So the ability to sponsor people is just so powerful. And so I want to bring messages like this to people just at a broader scale.
Well, let's look out into the world. The next
Yes.
1 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
What does Joe see? And
Yes.
how are you playing in?
Yeah.
And you just made mention of you want to keep bringing those messages to the world, but I want you to tell me like what you're seeing out in the workplace. What's happening? And how are
Yes.
you having impact?
Right. Well, I feel like we're finding more and more ways as humanity to become divisive to one another. And and it's not just showing up, kind of in our overall society. It's beginning to now show up in the workplace, where, things like humility is seen as soft, kindness is seen
Mm.
as soft. These are all of the building blocks to building relationships. So, what we don't really understand is that we are destroying relationships and our ability to actually be high performing teams, because high performing teams are built on relationships. I spoke about my coaching before. Game time is game time. But when relationships were built, that was kind of, in the locker room. It was like, hanging out with the players' families. It was, traveling for baseball and going to dinner with everyone. It's on the practice field. That's where the relationships get built. The relationships are not built during game time. Game time is go time.
Mm.
So I bringing back, I think, humility, the ability to build relationships, bringing back or understanding and introducing things like conscious interruption, and interrupting a moment where you are about to be your worst self and choosing to be someone different. Gosh, I mean, even on my book, I mentioned this before, that my mantra is own thy S word, and it
Yeah.
starts like that. And both me and my publisher had a conversation, because that was originally the name of the book. And I said, but that may actually eliminate or make some people not interested in the book. So what if I make the conscious interruption and the choice to cross out to still kind of go in that direction. So on the cover of the book, it says SHI, and then it's crossed out and it says stuff.
Mm.
So even the book cover itself is our opportunity to, in the moment, make a conscious disruption and a decision to be or appear a little bit differently, so that we are more welcome to the full masses. And
Mm.
that, to me, is what I hope to that will start to come out of this. Let's make humility cool again. Let's make kindness cool again. instead of, oh, well, that's too soft. You're a snowflake. Blah, blah, blah. It's such a ridiculous. What we're trying to build relationships as opposed to destroy them.
And what I would add to that it's not an either or.
Right.
We can be
Yes.
both. We can be strong and kind.
Yes.
We can be competent and humble. And I think
Right.
what happens is people swing. They make a choice. I'm either going here or going here.
Right.
But I love this world that you just described. I'd like to be in it. I'd like to continue to do the work that I'm doing in your world. And I'm so grateful for Ning for making this introduction and having you now in my world and being witness to all the goodness that you're going to put out there and continue to do all the work that you're doing.
Yes.
So Joe, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Absolutely.
And sharing some incredible wisdom and stories. Very grateful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Warriors at Work show. If you are interested in learning more about what we do at the Warriors at Work show and platform, be sure to go over to my website, Jeannie Coomber, and subscribe to my monthly Warrior Playbook newsletter. I share everything that I'm up to month by month, as well as some lessons and insights that I've learned. I'm also interested in hearing any feedback you have about this conversation or future topics. So reach out to me directly on jc@jeanniecoomber.com or on LinkedIn. Be sure to tell your friends and your colleagues about this Warriors at Work conversation. Subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the best way to get this message out into the world. Be well.